Hi there, and welcome to Reflections with Rhonda Jones. We're glad to bring you a show, the first show of the 2013 new year, and we're so excited about 2013. 13 is a lucky number, and we'll see if that pans out. Not that I'm superstitious or not. All right, my co-host panel, introduce yourselves.
Monica Livingston.
Ruthie Wyvern.
Kimberly Johnson.
All right, we have two mimes over here that we're going to get those, y'all ladies. You need to a little more of the to come out. Y'all are so prim and proper. And I guess somewhere in the middle of these two and these two is the healthy balance. And so we're trying to strike that. But, you know, as we enter the new year, we know that most people make resolutions. And we talked a little bit about it last year. And we know the ones that we've made. And we want to get kind of use a little thermometer here and see how we're doing on our resolutions. And I'll go first, and I'll admit to some of my failures, huge ones. One of them, I can't tell you what it was, but I'm failing miserably. And number two, to eat healthier. I'm not doing that well. Today I did a good job thanks to Ruthie. She's sort of like our, what would you call her? Wellness expert?
Food guard.
Yeah, that's really what I would call it. I was trying to be nice. Kind of like our food guard. And she did a great job for us today. And
Plate police.
Plate police. Plate police. That's good. She brought us some smaller plates to eat off of. And, you know, that's pretty sad when you can't control yourself. Like, you have to eat off a smaller plate. That's bad. But that's what she did for us. So we tried it. And I think it worked well today. And so today is the day you concentrate on. Tomorrow is another day. And one thing I do want to say is if you've made a resolution and you have failed so far, don't say, oh, I failed, I'm going to just stay off the wagon. No. You know what I'm saying. Get back on there and try again because, like I said, every day is a new day. So let this be your starting point. If I fail today, tomorrow will be my starting point. And that helps you in so many areas of life. Okay, Monica, let's hear some of your failures.
I have to start out with how I did well. Well, the first day of the new year, I didn't even worry about it, I guess. But from January 2nd on, I've not had any sodas, and I haven't truly missed them. I've tried to drink a lot more water. I'm not doing as well on the water as I should be, so that's probably my failure, is more water. And I've also been trying to watch the portions. Mm-hmm. I've used a little app that I like. It's called loseit.com, and I used it some last year and had some success with it, so I went back to what was working. It depends on me to put it in. It doesn't, I do get reminders and stuff, but I still have to do something towards it. But it helps me keep track of like the calories I've eaten and just kind of be honest with what you're putting in your mouth and exercise if you do it. And
nice.
So.
Very good. Ruthie, I'm sure you haven't had any New Year's resolution
Not
failures.
yet. I sent off 2 encouraging cards this week. So
Awesome.
Friday.
All right.
Well, tell people what your resolution was, one of them.
To be more encouraging to people this year.
Right.
So.
And we were perplexed last week when she told us because she is always encouraging, always encouraging. And for her to say I need to be more encouraging was really a testimony to Ruthie, and not to mention to all of us, because I don't think we ever really arrive at a place. There's always room for improvement.
That's right.
The old, probably like in the 90s, it was big about a search of excellence, but you always need to be searching for it.
Right. I had that habit of saying, well, I really should send so-and-so a card, and then the week would go by and I hadn't done it, and then the next week would go by and I hadn't sent it. So I just thought I'd try to be more conscious of doing that this year. So.
Very nice. All right, Kimberly, success or failure?
Not too good with the diet. We had a big cookout for New Year's Eve, and we decided we needed to eat all that before we died.
But you did good today, like the rest of us.
I did good today, so far. And with the time management, I actually found I got a Kindle for Christmas, and I found a free books about time management, and I've been working through that, so hopefully that's going to be better.
Very nice. Especially now that you've got a Kindle, I can see where time management might be more important to you because aren't
Yes,
those
because I
things
can't-
addictive to be able to
yes,
read a book
they
just
are.
so seamlessly and get on the internet when you want to and look up. I mean, it's just so.
I love my Kindle.
Yes, that was a nice present. So I guess I'm probably the biggest loser here on the show today. And
No,
next
you're
week,
just the slowest starter. We'll say that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am more of a marathoner. You know, I can't sprint, but I keep telling everybody this time next month you'll see a big change in jowlage and things like that. And so we're going to do good. I'm encouraged. Go ahead, Momo.
Well, I was just going to say there's a lot of different things that you can do to kind of help yourself. You know, one thing that I saw this week, and I'm contemplating doing it, was one of the guys that was on the 2020 show that we were talking about earlier that had lost half their weight. What he did is he made his journey public. He put it on like a blog or Facebook or something and let like the internet and all his friends and family keep him accountable because like daily he would post something and how his progress and how he was doing. Now, that may work for some, it may not work for others, because on that same show was a lady who had her own TV show, and I cannot remember her name, that was about her weight loss journey. And she got to a point to where she wasn't losing anymore, and she was down on herself, and so she would find ways to cheat on her eating and then cheat on the scale on the show.
Oh, no.
It did come to pass to where they finally, you know, could tell she wasn't losing anything, and canceled the show, and then she went from there ballooning back up. So, you know, it kind of backfired on her. She's made some progress in getting healthy again, you know.
You know what? What you said made me think of something. To make it public, next week we'll have a scale here, and each woman will load up on the scale, herd up on the scale, and we
I
will,
have plans next week. I won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't be here next
I
week
think I'm a
either.
bit sick.
we'll make the numbers publicly known to everyone, and that way you can hold us accountable. How's that sound if you really
Yeah,
want to
I
be
don't-
accountable? Ladies?
We want to
That's
be
all right.
accountable, but we don't need to show our weight right here for
I don't
everybody.
need that much accountability. It'll be all right.
Ruthie, what are you weighing? About 100 and some change?
130 or so.
That's perfect.
That's a little bit too much. I need to be 126.
Okay.
Yeah, but normally you have
4
trouble
pounds.
gaining, so.
Right.
All right, well, since we're working on this, let's talk about, well, I'll tell you what, let's talk about another resolution that most people do make, and it has something to do with organization, time management. Monica, you found an article that's very instructive and instrumental in doing that.
I did, and the main thing about this article is that it tells you that, you know, you didn't, you know, your place that you live, your home, did not get cluttered or disorganized or in the state it's in, filthy, whatever you want to call it, in a day, in a week. So don't beat yourself up if you go in there on a Monday and by the end of the week your house isn't organized and perfect and wonderful. You know, you have to be realistic. And with this, it actually takes 52 weeks. And the website is Home Storage Solutions. You can also find it by Googling 52 weeks to an organized home. And it is a 52-week challenge. And it breaks it up by 52 weeks to where you just focus each week on a different thing. And the first week is actually a kitchen challenge. And it is to work on your kitchen countertops and your kitchen sink and basically keeping those clear. Now, clear does not mean nothing on your countertops. It means deciding what the purpose of your kitchen is, your kitchen countertops. Like, is this end of your cabinet just junk? Everybody throws everything. Well, maybe you need a junk bin or a junk bowl. If it's a spot where you drop your keys and your mail, use it purposely, intentionally for that. If not, then find another place to put that. If you need a mail organization area, make one in another spot, another room or whatever. but to use your spaces intentionally and to work on clearing it off and keeping it clear through a week and learning how to start having a routine down for going through the mail or whatever. And each week is a different thing. The second week, it's all about the kitchen cabinets and the drawers and clearing those out of items that you don't use, that are too old to use, or that someone else may use because you're not. So
very good.
And then it goes through each week. And some weeks may not apply to you. Like, I don't have a garage, so I'm not going to be doing the garage. I don't have a ton of CDs that I manage, and my husband's very managed, very organized with his CD stuff that he uses for work and what have you. So, there's areas that you won't need. Maybe you can focus on something else or revisit something else. Maybe if you're having a area that, you've organized, but it's not staying that way. Well, so that's one I've found.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to do it. If you aren't the kind of person, you can clean your whole house in one entire day almost, but then there are so many organizational things that you can't do in one day. So to me, having a clean home and having an organized home, sometimes they're two different things.
They are.
That's
Now, I know Ruthie's home, every time I've ever been there, it's always, immaculate, whatever, but I don't know if she's got everything organized like she wants it.
Not completely, no.
Yeah.
I keep finding things. I'm going to have to redo this, and I do. Like with the kitchen, I bought some little wire racks that you can put in the shelf so that you can stack, because it was just too hard to, have to move 3 bowls to get to the 4th bowl. Just like
Right,
stuff.
the bigger one when
yeah.
move the smaller ones to get to the bigger one, and that's,
And all this kind of dovetails into having more time to encourage other people. You have more time to be with your family. Once everything is where it needs to be. What's the old saying? A place for everything and everything in its place.
Right.
Really makes a lot of sense. And containers and baskets and bins, and they really help. And I know toward the end of this year, I did a lot of putting things in baskets and stuff. So if I have to clean off something, I just move the basket full of the stuff and wipe instead of having to take everything, off like that. So there's
Right.
little tricks you can do. I also heard that if you take 10 minutes in a room, just 10 minutes in the bathroom, 10 minutes in the kitchen, 10 minutes in the living room, if you just do that every single day, pretty soon you'll have it just about like you want it. Now, keeping it that way is a whole other issue, especially with the demands of life. And as women, we are multitasking constantly. And if we're going to help and encourage more people, then, we're going to have a little less time at the house. So we can tell our husbands and ourselves, since we're going to be encouraging more people this year, you might notice a slack off in some of the, household duties that I have assigned to myself. Now, your duties remain the same. You may have to pick up some of my slack.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be encouraging people, right?
On that topic, my son this week, and he's not raised to think this way, so just putting that out there. But my husband was sweeping to help me out, and don't fall out of your chair, it's okay. And he will. If I ask him, he will do anything I ask. Now, does he see, and does he normally just think pick up a broom because there's stuff on the floor? Probably not, and
that goes
not.
without saying.
Love you, baby.
It's true.
But he was sweeping, and my son was messing with him. He was like, Daddy, sweeping is women's work. And my husband was kind of like just taken aback by that. It's like, where did you hear that sweeping is women's work? And then he said, Mom. And I'm like, Mom not said that. Are you crazy? And
Because he always sees you.
I think that's the thing. And that's what I was telling Kimberly earlier, is that I think that it's just from the fact that he knows that Daddy, I don't work outside the home right now. So he sees that Daddy has a job that Daddy does. And what he sees Mommy do is the dishes and the laundry and the sweeping, and so that's woman's work because that's what he's associated in his head.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad thing.
Right, but it sounded really sexist.
Yeah, it did.
But we
really
just
did.
tried to explain to him that women can do the same jobs that men do, and that men can do the same jobs as women do, and that, I think I kind of added that, maybe that's going to be the first thing you learn to do in the house is pick up the broom because one day your wife will thank me for it.
Exactly.
I'll be
She
in good with
will.
my daughter-in-law one day.
Yes, I have a nephew that's a stay-at-home dad, and his wife works outside the home,
Right.
and he loves it, So
You okay over there?
Oh, okay, we need a cough drop. Crew member, Ruthie, do you have a cough drop in your purse anywhere? I can get a crew member to bring you your purse.
Yeah, I've got, oh, he's bringing you Ricky's water.
Thank you.
Okay,
Around the microphone.
that's all right. We had a gnat fly. A gnat. No, not
It's
really.
horrible when you get choking like that and you can't stop. So.
The more you tell yourself I'm not going to cough, the worse it gets.
That's the thing is when you suppress it, it really does
It
that.
gets worse.
But that's cute that, well, it's not really cute that he said that, but I know why he
That's
said
funny.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. But it brings you to another issue is, you know, how do you tell the children these things, especially if mom does work in the home and not outside the home at this time in their marriage, or if you're a single mom and you do have to work outside the home, or you don't have to and you can stay home. You know, how do you tell the children this information? You know, because you don't want to set preconceived notions in their head.
Right.
You don't want to say, in my opinion, you know, daddy works, you know, outside the home. Mommy has to stay home and clean and cook. I think that's a disservice to, especially little girls. You know, because some of them will say,
well, for the men too, because
Well,
if I tell
true.
my son that, then he may grow up thinking, you know, I'm going to meet a woman and she's going to stay home and cook and clean, and that woman may have the dream to be the president of the United States
True.
or a lawyer
That'd be a
or a
problem.
doctor, and then you know, so I think that you know it's a gradual thing that you know you show them that yeah, this may be what I'm doing now, but it's like I've told them, you know, mom may go back to school or mom may go back to work, and you know.
right. Yeah, I think it's
There's a
important.
balance.
Right. It's important to show, you know, both sexes when they're young, careers that, you know, overlap the gender, you know, identities. Because a lot of people, when you say somebody's a doctor, they assume it's a man, even nowadays. You know, even as, to me, I think I'm forward thinking in a lot of ways, but I still make crazy assumptions. And I'm thinking, you know, here I am, and I think I've got a handle on some things, but yet my mind is still a little tainted from traditional value, you know, roles and stuff.
My daughter, you know, at the beginning of the year, she had a male teacher, and she's like, male teacher? I don't want a man teacher. And it's like, baby, you know, a man can teach, and, you know, I mean, we brought up, look at Grandpa, you know, he teaches, and it was, you know, different teachings, but, you know, different things, but she came to like the guy and really, you know, like him teaching her. And she did end up getting a female teacher because he was just temporary until they hired someone more because of, you know, growth of the school. But it just goes to show you that it's real easy for children, you know, to get ideas in their head that something's a certain way. Right. And I think that maybe sometimes we have to think about what they do see and what, you know,
what they hear
and help them to not form these preconceived ideas, because that's probably where a lot of ours maybe came from.
Yeah. And we need to realize that what we do every day, children see, and that forms the kind of person they're going to be. So we need to really be conscious of what we're teaching, but what we're doing or not doing, or what we're saying, or not saying for that matter. Exactly. And that's something we have to be conscious of. I just wish when my children were growing up that I was more conscious of that than I was, you know, so.
Right. I see that too in my own life. But also the message that the New Covenant group has is all-inclusive. You know, God is love. He doesn't ever condemn us, and that's a true and accurate message. But do we live it out every day? You know, when somebody cuts you off in traffic, you know, how do you respond? You know, if somebody, like I did something really ugly, I always confess on the show. Wow. I think I did something pretty ugly. I took my dad to the doctor Friday, and then we had to go get his prescriptions filled, and so we got to the drugstore, and my dad and I go up to the counter where you turn your stuff in, and a lady was behind us, and where you should be, because this is private information, really. You know, you should stand back and observe those kind of, you know, just everyday rules in your mind, respect. But this is where I didn't. So then I could tell she was getting impatient because it's the new year, new insurance, this crazy stuff. So, and she was like, huh. And then she had the audacity to come around and stand kind of beside my dad. So my dad was between us. The lady was over here, and I was still over here by my dad, and I was getting perturbed a little bit. And that shouldn't have entered my heart, but it did. So she was leaning on the counter beside my dad, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. And I said, but I'm not going to say anything to her. I'm going to let it slide. But whenever my dad and I were finished, and he said, okay, I'm going to go outside for a minute till they call me. I said, no, just hold up. We're not going to go outside quite yet. And I said, please have a seat over here in the little waiting area. And this is sad, too. I wanted my dad to see me in action. This is one of the sick parts. So this lady steps up to her turn, and what do you think I'd do? You know.
You leaned on closer?
I did. I got to this place where she was leaning, and I started leaning up by her like she did my dad. And I didn't do it really in a mean way, but I wanted her to see, like, do you see how it feels? Do you know how intrusive this feels? Maybe you didn't know it, but now you might. And so the lady helping her, she said, well, do you have a question? And I said, no, not at this time. And I just stood there, and she gave me the stink eye, the lady, and then gave her stink eye back. And then she moved her cup. And then I thought, well, maybe she's not getting the message. I wanted her to say, ma'am, then I was going to say, well, honestly, you did that to my dad. Do you understand how that feels? Now, when I told my husband the story, he said, well, oh, you do believe in an eye for an eye. And I said, no, I do not believe in eye for eye. I do not believe that. But I do believe sometimes in object lessons. And that's, I would call it just an object lesson.
I agree with you. Like you said, the part that was, it shouldn't have entered your heart. But I don't necessarily see a problem with what you did. It may have just been what entered your head is like, oh, no, she didn't. I'm going to do this to her. But, teaching someone, like you said, she may not have been aware of it. A lot of times people, they don't think. They do stuff and they don't think about, what their actions are doing towards another person or how another person feels.
But aren't we supposed to be like long-suffering and just, she, God bless her, she got it wrong. But to me, then she'll get it wrong every other time again, But I don't know. I can't say I had her 100% best interest in my mind. But I did think in my heart at one point, maybe she can understand what happened, the encroachment, that you don't do that. And I think if I would have said something to her, that would have been the real fight, probably, if I would have said, ma'am, I don't think you need to be standing so close to my father. This is Privacy Act information. I don't know. Ruthie, I know you're going to give it to me straight, and I can handle it.
And she's waiting on it. I'll help her. I'll hold her. I'll hold her up.
What would you have done?
I would have just walked away.
Golly.
Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. So if you did to her what she did to your dad, you're not showing her how she needs to act.
There's a lot of truth in that. There's a lot of truth in that. And I certainly agree. But I still don't believe in an eye for an eye. I don't think. But yet I did it. But how can I reconcile that? I don't believe in an eye for an eye. Kaylee, Kimberly.
One time I hit my brother, and when my dad got on to me, I told him, I said, the Bible says to do unto others as you want them done to you, and he hit me first, so he must have wanted me to hit him back. So yeah, you start twisting scripture young. No, I don't think that I would have done the same thing back. I don't know if that's just cowardice on my part or or nobility. I don't know. I would have said something. I'd have told her to back off.
Wow. See, to me, that's.
But
yeah,
then
I'm thinking
every
that's probably what I
situation
would
is
have
different because you probably could tell maybe subconsciously that she was aggressive, and maybe that would have caused more problems. I don't know.
Yeah, she was doing like the. Like the,
I wonder if it was the same pharmacy and the same woman, but it doesn't sound like it because the way it ended to me, the lady was talking about me to the pharmacist.
Oh, no.
I had pulled up, and this was last year.
Did you steal something again?
No.
Just a joke. Okay, baby. Go ahead.
We're sitting in the pharmacy drive-thru lane, and they had told me just a minute, we'll be right with you, we're backed up in here. And you could see they were backed up, and there was like one person that was working both the drive-through and the counter for the pharmacy. And so, you know, I sat there and I got out a bill or something, and I was writing out a check or whatever it was, and, you know, lady pulls up behind me. Well, all she can see is that, you know, I'm doing stuff. Well, I can understand to her it looked like I was just fooling around in the drive-thru. But she sat there long enough that there was no interaction between me and the counter that she could have easily not assumed that I was just holding up traffic and thought, well, why aren't they putting the drawer in and out? There must be some reason, and giving me the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Well, she didn't, and she sat there for a while, and then she ended up backing up, almost hit somebody when she backed up, got into the other lane, sent the tube up, was fussing and everything, and I ignored her, and then she did it again. And needless to say, I didn't end up ignoring her, and I did end up saying something, and wasn't exactly nice with it, so I can't say, you know, I did any better. But I told her, I said, you know, have you ever thought about the fact that they're busy in there, and it ain't me holding it up, and I was just passing the time, you know?
So y'all were car by car and talking back between each other?
No, she was talking to the pharmacy and about me.
And you heard it?
And I heard it and ignored it 2 or 3 times. Then finally, when I got my stuff, I got ready to pull off, and she started again and was telling them again. I rolled down my window and said something. So
high five. I'm just joking. That was horrible to do to somebody.
Yeah. So, anyways, confession time, huh?
Part of the reason I don't do that, I think, is because I was shy for so long that I wouldn't have had the courage to do it, and I just got in the habit of not doing it. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it didn't have anything to do with how good I am.
I don't know. I've seen you do some pretty gutsy things, but they were nice. They were, you know, like if you have to tell somebody, sometimes it's hard to tell somebody something that they need to know and do better about. And you know, sometimes I can do that, and just sometimes I can't for whatever reason. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I'm the same way.
Ruthie has no problem telling you, you know, what you really need to be doing. And that's good, because she's supposed to. I mean, she's an older woman, wiser, and she's supposed to teach us things, you know. And so she does. And so I thank God for that. But I'm wondering if we're not rubbing off on each other, sitting close on it. So we need to switch out one of these for this side, because that's the good side. That's like
I'm not the bad side.
Well, one of us is making the other bad. And so we need one of the good ones to switch.
I think she's saying I'm the bad one.
If you were separated, then you could shoot darts with your eyes back and forth to each other, so, you know, it might not help.
Well, nowadays they call it the stink eye. Give somebody the stink eye.
Well,
so,
I'm behind times.
I know. I need to get you up to speed. Now, speaking of the stink eye, but not really, there was a situation that happened with a little boy. And Monica, please tell us what has happened.
I'm going to pull it up. Give me just
And if you are listening and you have a comment or an opinion about this next story, please tell us, because we're all going to give ours, and we want to hear from you. And so you can text us at 850-572-7442, or you can actually Facebook message to Kaine Diatheke, or info@newcovenantgroup.com. So if you want to text 850-572-7442, and we will read your response, your opinion, or your lambasting or craziness. We will do either.
Okay. Close to a week after the school shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, there was a 6-year-old boy in Maryland who was suspended from school when he made a gun gesture with his fingers towards a little girl, and it isn't clear. He says the little girl said "pow," you know. But anyways, he was a 6-year-old. And he was suspended from 1 day.
Did he do it like this or like this? Because this is really serious.
Well, it just sounded like that, you know, he just did his fingers.
Okay.
And, you know, he was suspended for 1 day. And the thing is he was suspended because it says that he threatened, it was a threat to shoot a student from a 6-year-old.
With his finger.
With his finger. Now, most little boys watch the superhero shows and, you know, fighting shows and play the fighting games, and whether you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing or whatever, there's all kinds of opinions. But I know you can tell my boy, who is almost 6, something, don't do that because this could be thought of like this, or don't do that, and he's going to do it again and again and again. You may have to tell him 30 times. He's going to keep repeating it. It was said that this little boy was told not to do this, and why, possibly, but he did it again, and then they suspended him. But the parents are basically taking it to an attorney to try to get it expunged off his record, because what it says is that this boy threatened to shoot a child. And to me, to have that on a 6-year-old's record when they really probably don't know what they're doing from anything, you know. I mean, I could see if it was a 9th grader and they, you know, pow,
like a threat.
You know, you might take that more seriously. You might tell them, say, look, you know, with all this been going on, this ain't cool. Don't do it again. But a 6-year-old, I mean, I might have called the parents. I might have removed them, put them in the principal's office or whatever, and called the parents and said, look, you know, this is just too close to the school shooting for a kid, you know, to be popping a gun sign and saying pow towards a kid. But kids are going to do stuff, and I don't think, in my mind, I can fathom a 6-year-old acting like they're going to shoot somebody and saying pow and meaning it as a threat. But that's me. Maybe I'm naive.
Okay, Ruthie, what's your opinion?
I don't think most 6-year-olds really realize that a gun can kill.
And that a killing is forever, really.
Yeah,
Because a lot of people, you know,
6-year-olds, I just don't think, most of them, there may be a few, but most of them would not think that they had threatened that little girl. And if they were told they would, in their mind, they would say, well, now, what did I do wrong? You know, because that's the way that they think. They're not quite up to knowing this type of stuff. It takes a while. But you do need to stress to them that, you know, some people might take that wrong, and so it's not a good thing to do. But
Right, that's true. That's a good point. Kimberly?
I can't imagine that they would put that on a 6-year-old's record. That makes no sense to think that a child could even fathom. I agree that a 6-year-old, no, I have a 6-year-old. And
does your 6-year-old
she doesn't
understand
think in
death
those
is
terms.
forever?
Well, no, you know, when my son was 6 and we had a death in the family and we told our child this person has died and we're going to have a funeral. After the funeral, my son asked, well, can he come home now? And he said, no,
I think
he
a
had
lot
no
of times
clue.
they don't even fathom that it's a forever thing when someone dies. And especially, like, they see the games where, you know, you shoot them and then the bad guy gets back up.
Right.
You know, blink,
Mario
blink, blink,
lands
oh,
in
he's back to
lava.
life, you know. Batman
Right.
gets shattered to pieces in the Lego games and 15 seconds later he's on the screen with 5 lives, you know, or whatever.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Well, you know, I didn't read the article. You did tell me ahead of time about it. And I don't know if the child is a problem child. I don't know if the child has been told over and over and over and over again. I don't know if he's an aggressive child.
it didn't seem like it. From the article, it said that one of the articles, I read many concerning it, trying to, you know, make sure that I had some information, but it said that, you know, he was a very kind of soft-spoken young boy, quiet and reserved.
Well, that's
That's
usually
the ones you got to worry about.
That's what I'm saying. That's usually the ones that shoot up all these folks. These quiet, reserved ones.
I wouldn't question the suspension. That's the school's decision, and I don't know all of the
Right.
the
Especially if
surrounding
you've been
area.
told.
But to have on his record, you threatened a child with a gun.
Right.
He didn't have a gun.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make sense, especially a small child. Like Monica was saying, maybe a high schooler made that gesture. You could say, hey, you threatened them. I wouldn't even say with a gun because you don't have a gun in your
Right.
hand.
Exactly.
But a kindergarten age, that's ridiculous.
You know, maybe they're just trying to cut this off at the pass before he gets into middle school, or, you know, who knows?
Yeah.
I think
they're overreacting because of the situation.
Right, exactly. And you know.
And that was my thing, is I do think it was an overreaction. And I understand where they're coming from. They would rather catch a child early or a person early that has warning signs for aggressive behavior and stuff. But when you look at the age of these children, and 99% of regular TV, let alone video games and anything else, there's violence. And then you have to think about, what's the child exposed to? Do they have guns around? Is it a parent that goes deer hunting and they know that, when they shoot this animal, the animal's not getting back up? I mean, there's different factors that factor in, so it's not a cut and dry thing. But when you have a 6-year-old, I think that you would give the benefit of the doubt, and yes, alert the parents. Say, look, he's making gun signs in class. We really can't have that. Some other kids may be scared hearing about what had happened, because I know when the incident first happened, we didn't come right out and say, oh, there was a shooting. I said, there was something bad that happened today, and and then Monday when I took the kids to school and I participated in the lockdown drill, I did kind of go a little bit further with them, because I also knew that they're going to encounter other kids that may talk about it, and I don't want them to say, well, why didn't Mommy talk to me about this, or why did Mommy tell me something happened, but they didn't tell me what happened. And I don't want them hearing all kinds of different stories from everybody else without hearing truth from me. And not that I'm saying I have all truth in that area. I mean, I may never know exactly everything that happened.
No, but your children, and wisdom.
What they can handle, what they can't handle. And I don't want them to be fearful to go to school, and that's probably the first instinct, is I didn't want to make them totally fearful about going to school.
Right.
But at the same time, I didn't want them, and suddenly they're doing all these drills, which they do practice it several times a year, but I didn't want them to not know about it and hear it from somebody else and then become fearful when I can't.
Because then you say, if you never tell them and somebody did come into the school, I would want my children prepared. But yet then you say, well, if I tell them there's a possibility of some crazed nut coming in the school, they would be afraid to go to school. Some kids would be so stricken.
Right.
And, they may have this phobia about school now. And so, to be a parent nowadays, my goodness, of smaller children and what to do, I don't know how you two ladies even do it. I mean, and that brings us, we have a viewer comment, and this is from my girl, Tina. Hey there. She says, a finger is not a threat at 6 years old. This should not be on his record.
I agree.
And I think that's the general consensus. I do, I'm in favor of maybe the 1-day suspension. I don't have a problem with that. If it sounded like they've told him over and it's a repeat thing, I think consequences, whatever. But the record of a 6-year-old, I don't know. But we see where little kids bring guns to school, loaded guns at an elementary school age. I've read about that. Yeah. And, I think a lot of that, obviously, well, all of it is the parent. A parent problem there.
Right. I mean, the guns being where the child could get to it.
They got it from somewhere,
not understanding the seriousness of it, not understanding that, yes, if you have this gun and you take it to school, you may not be intending to hurt anybody, but you may scare somebody, or it might go off unintentionally, or, but having it where the child can get to it and not in a locked place or in a place where the, way out of reach. Or
Ruthie, if you were the mother of small children during this Newtown, Connecticut school shooting, would you tell your little children that, a man came into school and gunned down 20 first graders? Would that be the way you?
No, I'd say, that something bad happened. There was this sick man, did some bad stuff, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen to you, that this just happened, and I wouldn't go into great detail depending on the age of the child, of course.
Right.
If they were a 3rd or 4th grader, you can go into more detail than you can with a 1st grader or kindergarten. They just can't accept that. I mean, it's
right.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are having separation anxiety anyway from their parents. For the first month or so, then they should be over it.
Some of them don't.
Some of them don't. That's
true. It goes into 1st grade.
It does.
I'm not speaking experience, but I'm just saying. My daughter ran off from me, and my son practically ran off from me, except for in his VPK class. First day, woohoo! Second day, wah!
Yeah.
But that's is what it is. But
Well, how'd you tell him? I mean, what'd you say?
Basically, I told him that there was an incident that happened where a bad person had gotten into a school and hurt some people. I didn't go into it. They all got shot up, and it was 20, 27 people. You know, I told them, and I really tries to emphasize that, you know, your school and most schools have security measures to kind of help with this thing. And I'm not saying that that school didn't, but, you know, be thankful, and the chance of it happening again soon or happening in your school, and, you know, I wanted to make them aware of it, but I didn't want to flood them with information that they can't handle, like Ruthie was saying. Right. And, you know, another thing is I was in my daughter's classroom, and she's a second grader, the week later when the Christmas time parties were going on, and we were having a Christmas party, and the kids at her school had volunteered to make snowflakes to hang in the new school that the Newtown, Connecticut kids would be moving to after their Christmas break. And so they were all making them, and the teacher just said, we're making them for a school that's getting a new school, to help welcome them to their new school. She didn't want to give out too much information, and she didn't know what each parent did. Right. So we're in the middle of doing this, and she had stepped to the door to talk to somebody, and suddenly I hear a kid go, oh, was that from the school that got, and I was like, hey, not everybody knows everything here, and let's rein it back in a little, and, you know, and I said, you know, that is the school, and, you know, try to just cap it off right there, because I don't know what somebody else, and then they go home and say, oh, Miss Monica, Rachel's mom told me all about the shooting, you know.
Oh, that would be horrible.
Yeah.
That would be horrible. Well, Kimberly, how would you have addressed that with your children?
Well, they happened to be in the room when I read the article, and it was upsetting. And, of course, both of them, what's wrong? And I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I told them both at that time that a person who's obviously sick went into a school and hurt some children. And that satisfied my 6-year-old, but my older child said, what did he do?
Yeah.
And I said, that's something we'll discuss later if you want to know. Your sister's not old, and of course she gets I want to know. Which she wouldn't even thought to ask if he hadn't. But I try really hard to be honest with my children, and I told her, Sissy, baby, you're not old enough to understand what happened. Okay, there's some children that are hurt. There's some families that are hurt, and because this person did this, and that's all you need to know. Yeah. And then later, I talked to my older child and told him that he wanted to know how they got hurt, and then I said they were shot. I'm a big believer in only answering questions that are asked. Yeah. And so he wanted to know how, and then he wanted to know, did they die? And I said yes. And
yeah, that's a good policy.
And, you know, he's so tenderhearted. His first thought is, what is their mommy and daddy going to do for Christmas? And I said, honey, you're going to make me start crying all over again.
Let me start crying.
We're all about to need tissues up here, crew member.
But that's just, you know, that's my boy. He's real tenderhearted. And he asked questions, and I answered them until he was satisfied. And he made the statement, I'm glad I don't go to public school, because it made him afraid. And I said, baby, this doesn't happen all the time. Yeah. Because then that's his next thought was, what about Rachel and Gavin? What about Star and Skylar? Are they safe? Yeah. And, you know, I had to reassure him.
That's what, you know, one of my questions was, you know, Rachel, I think, asked something about happening at schools. And I said, well, baby, truth be known, I mean, it could happen just about anywhere, and has happened a lot of different places. And, you know, but you can't live your life, and this is word for word pretty much what I told you, you can't live your life worried that you're going to walk into Walmart and be shot.
Right.
You know, you can't live your life, and this is after I explained to her that it was a shooting, you know, that you can't live your life worried you're going to go to the mall, you know, that you have to live your life and just live your life, because people are killed in automobile accidents, they die of diseases, you know, just any number of things. And if you live your life just afraid of, you won't be living.
Right.
And, you know, that I think helped her, you know.
You know, the message that the New Covenant group and a lot of people are putting out is inclusiveness. And I know some people are physiologically, mentally ill. Their brain has problems.
Right.
Some people are coming that way because of being shunned, ostracized, and things like this. So we have about a minute left. I think this message of inclusiveness and the great love of God can help people that feel this way. And that's why it's so important to get it out there. So important to get it to younger people, to start the child out early knowing, because I think when they feel included, they will include other people. Because we all went to school with kids that were different, they acted a little strange, and you know, back in the day, most people did shun them and you know, made fun of them. But if we are taught at an early age that we're all perfect in the sight of God, you know, we don't act perfect, but God sees our potential, and He knows what we are in Him. I think it would make a difference in some of these instances, not all, because I do think people have it could be chemical, it could, God only knows, but we've got to get this message out. And so we would love for you to help, and you can do that by joining us on Facebook. We're under Kaine Diatheke. It's Kaine. Obviously, you probably know by now, Diatheke. You can always text us and Skype us and just get a hold of us any way you can. We had a great text yesterday from a friend of ours on Facebook, Anton. He said he was brought up in a very religious home, but he always felt ostracized because of his sexuality. And he knows, even though he felt condemned, he still believed in the love of God and just knew that God could not, you know, put him away. But he wants his family to understand this, and so he's very concerned about getting his family on board and with this message, and he wants anything that we can do for him and show him and tell him how to, you know, to minister to them. And he's so supportive, and he's saying, keep up the good work. And so that's what we plan on doing, if it takes one person at a time, so that they can feel liberated and feel that God surely loves me in whatever state I'm in. Whatever my family says is one thing, but what God says is the truth. And so we love you. Happy 2013, and you'll see us again next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.